Okay, now we have our special presentations. And I see first on our list is the Chumash Indian Museum. So Barbara, if you want to join us at the podium and introduce yourself so we have it officially on record. And then we'll look forward to hear what you have to say.
All right, I'll take this off so you can hear me. All right, well, thank you for the opportunity. I realized we weren't able to give a report last year due to COVID-19. So this is kind of a double year report. But so I'm Barbara Tejada. I'm the board chair for the Oak Brook Park Chumash Indian Corporation, which is our official nonprofit's name, and that we operate the Chumash Indian Museum. So this is our report. Unfortunately, I forgot to print out a copy of this to distribute to everyone, but I can certainly forward that along to Tom that he can send out to everybody. So it's been quite the year. Our museum officially closed due to COVID-19 on March 13th of 2020. We reopened briefly for 2 weeks in November, and we got really good response and people coming in, and then the guidelines changed and we had to close again. Because we primarily, and all the access to the museum is an indoor operation, although we have outdoor facilities, guests have to come in through the inside. We decided we would just wait until the indoor museum guidelines were approved before we opened. So although the grounds obviously were open, we didn't open any earlier than that. So then we finally reopened again on April 10th of this year. So we were closed for about a year. But it did make us kind of kick us into gear to become more diversified with online and digital outreach. Things that some of the things we talked about for a while, but never really had the time to do it. Well, it kind of forced us to do it. So we continued an active social media presence through Facebook and Instagram. And then we were hunting down a variety of grants to keep us going through the closure. And we were actually really lucky to get a National Endowment of the Humanities. It was our first federal grant through the CARES Act that helped fund a lot of these digital and virtual experiences. Ventura County Community Foundation grant, we just got a California Relief Grant, and the Paycheck Protection Program, and of course all the support from CRPD and our donors kind of kept us going, because primarily a lot of our income relies on admissions, and obviously that was not happening during this past year. So now we are open right now, Saturdays and Sundays. We revised the hours a little bit. We're 11 to 3, but we're working toward reinstating our previous hours, which was Saturday 10 to 4, Sunday noon to 4. You can see the 2020 attendance really tanked compared to the previous years. Before the closure, we were actually on track to exceed our 2019 attendance, which was about 2,400 visitors. So we were doing better than we had at that point in 2019. But obviously, with the closure, that went out the window. But so we had our school tour. So since this is a couple of years presentation, so the school year 2018 to 19. We served 6,500 students. The school year 2019 to 2020, which only went through March 13th, so it was cut short. It was a little over 4,400 students. We did, with the NEH grant, we were able to switch to a virtual program that we started kind of later in 2020. And through that virtual program, we were able to reach almost 4,000 students just through the virtual tour, which included the students would watch some videos that we made ahead of time, and then they would have a discussion period with one of our educators. So this is Brianna Rotella. It's a picture from one of the virtual tours that she gives the students. So she has a variety of things to show them laid out in front of her. So we're hoping to reinstate some in-person field trips this fall. We've had some inquiries, particularly from from some of the private schools. We're not sure what the public schools are going to be doing yet, but but I think even so, we're going to be continuing to offer our virtual tours. And so as part of that, we expanded our webpage for educational resources to include various children's activities. There's coloring sheets and word searches and things like that on our website. And then we started a whole new video production series as part of the NEH grant. And very fortunately, our museum education specialist, Vivian Steindl, she has some experience in theater, and her partner does camera work. So he really helped us, train us to do some of these videos. So we have a new YouTube channel with all these little informational videos with various members of our staff and board members and so forth on there. And so we have 141 subscribers. This is not a lot in the YouTube world, but we've had about 8,000 views across all of our videos, and we just started it. So we're hoping to continue that for sure. We every year we would do a evening speaker series event, and obviously that had to go by the wayside, but the grant did fund 4 speaker series sessions, and that we did online through Zoom, Facebook Live, and then we recorded it for our YouTube channel. So we had between about 45 to 120 people at each of the 4 events. But then there's over 2,000 views total, like people could go back and watch it later. So, and then we had this one program that was about repatriation with the curator of the Fowler Museum at UCLA. And so they've also posted links to it through their website and all that kind of stuff. So that was, and with Nakia on our board. We're hoping to restart our weekend learning events that were really popular before the closure. That includes the Archaeology Day, the Winter Solstice celebration, Ethnobotany Day. We're going to be doing Ethnobotany Day this year in July. And also First Skills Day, where we have flint knapping and atlatl throwing and, learning how to make things. We had just started doing these workshops, which were really popular, and we're hoping we can start doing that again, so people would learn how to flint knap, make an arrow point. We had a little basket weaving, and it was really popular. And then just as the stars aligned, there's a number of interesting books coming out. So we're actually going to be doing several book signings this year. So our first one is scheduled for later this month. Chumash Tataviam elder Alan Salazar just has a new children's book out that he's going to do a book signing event and reading at the museum. And we have, there's a garden book, Western garden book that the museum is actually featured in our ethnobotany gardens. So they're going to be doing a book signing as part of their Ethnobotany Day in July. So these have always been really popular events. This is a photo from our Ethnobotany Day in 2019. I have to do the calculation. So while we were closed, it also we had a lot of gift shop inventory just kind of sitting there. And so we still need to pay the bill. So we added onto our website an option, an online gift shop. And we had one of our native artists that usually does like t-shirts and bags for us. She started doing face masks. And so that became a really so popular that we were like, can you make more? We're sold out. So we did start our online gift shop sales. Obviously have kind of fallen off now, but we had over 22,000 visitors onto that store, and we brought in about 7,000 in revenue just through that to keep the lights on. So and just in the future for our regular gift shop, we're reaching out to more and more native artists and vendors to include more of their items in our gift shop. We will be commencing group gatherings. We don't do a lot. We do no more than 6 weddings per year, and they're very limited on size and times and noise and so forth. We do have a wedding scheduled, it was just a ceremony scheduled for August. And then we also do have sometimes tribal and community gatherings, picnics, tribal meetings and things like that. So we do a little bit of that, not too much. In our marketing, so we're up to over 2,000 Facebook followers, almost 2,000 Instagram followers now, which is a big leap from the numbers I presented last in 2018. We've had over 25,000 unique website visits since January 2020. We are, the last presentation I did, our email list was like 300. Now we're at over 1,600 people. So we notify them about events and everything. And we really use our social media pages a lot to advertise events and so forth. And then that gets picked up by other, goes not viral, but, we always, every year we do the Malibu Powwow and the Moore Park Powwow as community outreach events. They obviously haven't been doing them the past couple of years, but hopefully next year we'll get back into that. Since our last meeting, we've done some facility improvements pre-COVID. We did get a small grant from the city of Thousand Oaks, and it provided funding for installation of interpretive signs along the pathways outside the museum. So there's one at the Lang Ranch home site. There's one at the game field and one in the village, kind of explaining a little bit about what they are and the name, what they're called in Chumash language. We continue restoring our village after the Woolsey fire. Finding Thule is really hard to come by. And so we have been working. I'm always on the lookout. Is that Thule? Is that Thule in that pond? So we've got some relationships now with the Camarosa Water District and also Apricot Lane Farms that we have harvested Thule from. We got a new utility vehicle after the Woolsey fire. And now we have a protective storage for that because during COVID, we discovered that the squirrels like eating all the seat belts and all the seats. So we've been kind of growing our research library. It's not really open to the public, but it's available yet, but it's open to staff and our volunteers. And we've been kind of growing that, through various donations and things of books. We little by little, we're always working on tweaking and updating our exhibits and upgrading, and we're almost complete refurbishing our curation room that it actually now looks like a curation room for the storage of some museum collections we've been working with Stagecoach on transferring over. The one other thing that the NIH CARES grant provided us was funding we bought a better camera to help with some of the videos as well, but also to take photos of our collections so that we can have an online collections database that is already available through our Past Perfect software that we use for cataloging the collection. So right now you can go online. We have 126 objects from our collections online and you can learn, you see a photo of it. There's a little bit of descriptive information about it. And we're continuously looking to add additional things on there as we kind of build that whole thing up. So it's a little extra virtual online thing. So right now we have 4 part-time staff to cover our visitor services and education. We lost one staff member during the COVID thing. He ended up getting a job elsewhere. We have about a dozen volunteers that are kind of getting going again with us, helping out, everything on the weekends to special projects. So we're hoping to kind of reboot our volunteer program and build that up again after our closure. We work with Eagle Scouts a lot. So we've got a couple of small potential Eagle projects to build some more benches for our game field coming up. We made a really good contact with the Bank of America, Native American Employee Outreach Group, who helps us out with various things. And they've been, they gave us donations, a donation of, hand sanitizer and mask and all that for our reopening. And of course, we coordinate with Stagecoach Museum on the collections, various educational things. So financial stability, we're kind of rebuilding. During the closure, we were looking at every opportunity to cut costs. So we found ways to, cut back on our phone and internet costs, for example, like, how can we cut this out and that out? We, cut back on our trash service, found a better way to purchase cleaning supplies that would provide a larger discount. we discovered TechSoup, which offers really discounted software to nonprofit organizations. So we were able to cut a lot of, just our Microsoft Office account is now free because we go through TechSoup. It's not, so we're saving $10 a month. So not a lot, but every little bit was counting at that point. And of course, we were looking for all the grant opportunities possible. Now have a subscription to Grant Station, which we can go in and look for different grant opportunities there. So you can see kind of the difference between 2019 and 2020, the big blue in the 2019, where most of our income comes, is from school visits. And obviously that same blue color is a lot smaller in 2020, but the big purple is grants. So that's really, it's the grants that really sustained us through the COVID. It's a little more work for grants because there's writing it, and I'm working on the final report right now. And so there is you have to research the right ones, but it's something that we've always been trying to get to do more. And we were lucky enough to be able to get some to keep us afloat for the most part. And you can see our expenses. It's still mostly personnel and wages, but we have cut down our utilities at least through the closure. But it's kind of just interesting to see the colors. So like I said, I'll distribute the presentation to all of you. So what next? Well, we're rebooting. We're going to continue building on those virtual offerings that we had from the closure. We're going to expand on a lot of the public programming that we had really been successful for in 2019, which are those weekend educational events, our workshops that were getting to be really popular, and then everything shut down. We're continuing to enhance and further our collections management and diversifying our income streams. And we wanted to thank you. We'd like to acknowledge the ongoing support from CRPD board and the staff in supporting the museum, especially in this very challenging year. It's been very appreciated. There were a couple times I was like, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? But we've managed to come through it with your support, and we thank you very much. And we look forward to a much better 2021. So any questions?
Thank you so much, Barbara. Dr. Huffer, you have any questions or comments?
A comment. Obviously, you folks have not just been sitting on your hands going, woe is me for the past year. You have been so busy. And I'm really impressed by, you must have a massive IT staff doing all of this web and internet and social media stuff. I mean, you must have hundreds of staff doing all of this for you.
I wish. No, it's all been trial and error.
Well, from what you've showed us, it looks like it's been a very successful trial and probably lots of success and very little error. So I'm really impressed by what you guys have been doing. I'm looking forward to being able to get back over there. And you did answer one of my questions about that. I never can remember what those tent-like things are called with the Thule, but
The ops.
Okay.
The op, yeah.
Right, that's what you said.
Yeah.
But I know there are several local nonprofits that would love to be able to help in getting those back together once groups can start to meet and once you nail down your sources of Thule. So
yes,
thank
absolutely.
you for your
Great.
presentation.
Thank you.
Director Holt, do you have any questions or comments?
No questions. I'm just very impressed how you kept things going during this time and have made adjustments and improvements. And I look forward to going there again. I've always enjoyed my little excursions there.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank
Director
you.
Cusworth?
No, this is one of my homies. So, but I have to say, I mean, even though she doesn't have a large staff, I'd be continually amazed how at one meeting they'd say, we should do this, and then at the next meeting it's done. Or I'd look at their website and, things would get done very quickly. So she has an incredibly efficient staff and really good people working there. So I'm glad that we have such a wonderful museum here in our valley with such dedicated people. I mean, you all know Barbara is a volunteer.
Yeah, that's right. This is my second unpaid job. But no, we have a really great team at the museum. I think everyone works really well together between the board and the staff, and we just really passionate staff members. So.
Director Lang?
Yes, Barbara, I'm really pleased to see the energy that you're bringing to the rebooting situation, and also the energy and work that you put into keeping it going, as other directors have said. And at one time, as a board member, I used to be very involved in the startup days of the Chumash Indian Museum. And so I have a real fond memory of many aspects of the facility, the venue. But I just got to thinking, I think you did cover one of the major funding is school visits, but also general visitors, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And
yeah.
an idea just popped into my head while listening to you to kind of reboot getting visitors. Maybe once everything opens, you can have a Lang Ranch community potluck, put on some type of Indian event and so forth, program or whatever, and get the neighbors, because when the neighbors have friends of theirs come to visit them, what do? Here's something special that not many neighborhoods, can offer. So it might just kind of regenerate their thinking as to here right in our own backyard. And you also might get a lot of additional volunteers from an event like that. So bringing people together. So anyway, best of luck in the coming months and year. And I hope that, as other directors have said, I too hope to get back over there. So thank you again.
That's great. Yeah, we have that big custom-made barbecue that we can have. We just worked with the neighbors because we just had a sick bobcat that had been sighted around the neighborhood, and then it was seen in the museum at the museum property over the weekend. And we managed to find a wildlife rehab center, and they came out and so that generated actually a lot of social media amongst the local neighborhood about this poor little bobcat. So yeah, that's a good way of reaching out to the neighbors.
Yeah. In the past, I was involved in a large men's group associated with the church, and we probably had 3 or 4 big events there: breakfast, hiking to the caves, and just general hiking and so forth. And through that, I know at least 2 families, this goes back quite a few years, at least 2 families stayed with volunteering at the museum. So the more you can provide opportunities for people to interact, I think the higher percentage that you're going to get more volunteers and donations or whatever. So,
yeah, absolutely.
again, good job, Barbara.
Thank you.
Barbara, just a quick comment on the presentation. Thank you. I think you did a great job. Got a lot of good information there. Look forward to getting the hard copy of that. But I just was curious, we know that the Chumash Museum is there, and some people know, but not the whole community knows. But I just, with the other resources, because the Chumash influence is a regional thing, it's not a Conejo Valley thing.
Right.
With the various resources that either schools or those that are interested want to do research that they can go to, what is it about your facility that draws someone to this location as opposed to somewhere else? If they want to get research or if they want a museum, what's unique about it that draw people to it?
I think, we've specialized in school tours for a long time. So we get schools from like all over LA, and because there's nothing quite like it that you have. It's a small museum, but we have the grounds and with the little hiking trails. We have the replica village, and then so people really get a hands-on, you're in the beautiful oak woodland there, and people really like the location partly. But, we do a lot of, there are multiple different Chumash groups, but we try to kind of encompass, everyone and represent all the different locations, but there isn't really a dedicated Chumash Museum, except for they're building one in San Ynez. And that's going to be but that's still far away. And so we're much closer to Los Angeles, and we do get a lot of people coming out from the greater LA area out to because it is one of the few dedicated Native American museums that's open regularly. I know there are a couple facilities down in Los Angeles, but they're, one Saturday a week, or one Saturday a month. Or there's larger things like the Autry, which is, more general Native American, but we're very specific to the Chumash people that were in this greater area. So it is kind of a unique experience. And a lot of the events that we have, we pull from the native cultures around us, various artists, singers, dancers, and people always enjoy seeing that. So it's a very different experience versus like Satwiwa at National Park Service, which they do have events. But they're not really specific just to the Chumash.
Mhm.
So.
Well, thanks, because I know we've all been there and realized what a treasure it is. And certainly we're jealous of having it here, protective of that. But it's nice to know it's the regional influence. And obviously now you've got that online influence beyond that. So kudos to you. Director Lang, another
Yes,
comment?
thank you. Run quickie. I have a friend who is an author, Native American, and he is willing to do a book signing. In fact, he was scheduled to before you came on board,
Mhm.
during the transition. So if you are looking for another event such as that, just let me know.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, we found the book signings are actually pretty popular. We've only
Yeah.
had one or two, but suddenly all these books are coming out this year. I guess everyone had the time during COVID.
Well, thank you so much for the presentation. We look forward to getting back over there again. Thank you.
All
Barbara.
right, thank you.
Okay, we do have a second presentation tonight. And with us also is the Conejo Valley Historical Society, and Pam Bond is with us this evening, but I think someone else snuck in. So yes, so if you want to join us, and again, introduce yourselves for us and for everybody else, and feel free to demask so we can make sure we can hear you all. But I love the outfits, so maybe you can tell us about that too.
So,
And your names, don't forget.
okay, my name is Pam Pund, and I'm the president of the Conejo Valley Historical Society, which oversees the Stagecoach Inn Museum Complex. And it's standing to the side of me is Jana Goldsworthy, who is our director at the Stagecoach Inn Museum. And she'll be doing the presentation today, and I'll be cheering her on. Yeah.
So that's one of the biggest differences that's taken place since we last presented to you, which I'm guessing was mid-2019 maybe, that our longtime director, Sandy Hildebrand, who had been there for decades with just a few interruptions, has moved on to different things, and she's can't take herself away from the Stagecoach Inn, so she's now on our board of trustees. And I came on, think about the timing here, I came on in February of 2020. So I was just a month in the director's seat when COVID hit. So it's been a very interesting experience. And I am so grateful that there was such an amazing team of volunteers in place, that we have so much support from CRPD, and that we have such dedicated members and community members who really enjoy our facility. One of the things that we had talked about before COVID, Pam and I were kind of brainstorming about things that we wanted to do. And one of the main things that we wanted to do, you can go to the next slide. One of the main things that we wanted to do, one of the main things that we wanted to do was expand our social media presence and broaden our audience, attracting new and different types of guests to the property. And we wanted to put the Stagecoach Inn back in the center of the community. The Stagecoach Inn Museum, you may or may not know, originally built as the Grand Union Hotel in 1876, was the first commercial enterprise in the area beyond the ranches. So It enjoyed a very central location. It was the place to be. And we've had the community rally around us time and time again. When we were in the way of the 101 freeway and the Historical Society formed to move the museum, the community came together and really supported us. And again, when unfortunately just a short time later, the museum burned to the ground. Again, the community rallied. And so we've enjoyed this really wonderful position of having the community support us. And we feel like in recent years, we've lost a little of that. Not that people don't support us, but just that the activities taking place at the inn are not drawing as consistently people in. And so one of the things we wanted to do is offer diverse types of activities and bring lots of different people, re-educating them about this wonderful treasure we have in our community. Because we still hear people saying, oh, I've been a resident for 30 years and I didn't know you were here. So as the new director, the main thing I want to just say again is I'm so excited to have CRPD as our partner and supporting us. It's been amazing how much we've been able to rely on you. And so in coming in, you'll notice the quote at the bottom here, I never promised you a rose garden. Well, we do have a lovely one, but certainly what I was prepared for and what Pam and I had discussed in terms of our goals and strategies we're gonna have to be morphed a little bit to deal with COVID. It's been interesting though, because I actually think, and Barbara mentioned this too, that in a lot of ways, COVID pushed us to do things that we'd planned to do anyway. It just made us do them more rapidly. One of the reasons that Pam and I addressed in our period attire today is that the idea that we've really tried to stress through COVID is if you can't come to the museum, we'll bring the museum to you. And so that's what we're doing here today. And I have a little different emphasis with my presentation. I brought you annual reports for 2019 and 2020, as well as financials for just our recent financial position as of June 2nd, I think it is. So you have lots of facts and figures in there, lots of comparative data, as well as pictures. But what I wanted to do today, as we talk about what we're doing and have been doing, is to allow you, and I assume you can see a screen. I feel like I'm the only one watching a screen, but I wanted to be able to give you a little taste of what's going on at the museum. Like the Chumash Museum, one of our major programs is school tours. And we're booked a year or two ahead normally, and there was a lot of disappointed school children when we had to cancel. And of course, this was a huge blow to our revenue stream. Also, weddings is a very important part of our revenue stream, and that was obviously with COVID greatly interrupted. So we had to get very creative very fast. Not only were we missing the gate fees, but we were missing these two major sources of revenue. So we just amped up the speed on some of the things we were planning on doing already, which were coming up with some different ways to present the history of the region. Our curator of history, of course, during the COVID closures continued with acquisitions and developments, and we were working on all of our preservation. We're digitizing the collection. A lot of work has been done on that during COVID. So we've continued to make progress with the preservation of history, but we really needed to shift how we were going to present it, because normally, hopefully most of you have been out to the facility, but if you haven't, you're typically greeted by costume docents, and we give very personal tours and talk and a very hands-on look at what life was like in the late 1800s and through the present time. Our curator of collections has continued to be busy during COVID closures, and we actually have received some really beautiful donations. I think what happened during COVID is that a lot of people cleaned out their houses, and we had almost daily people calling to say, would you like this? And we have to be choosy because we do have very little storage space, and though we're trying to expand that as well as our display space, we have to be selective. Here pictured are just a few things that we got this past year. On the left are it's a beautiful collection of Haviland china. That's our spring table that we've set. We also have a collection of the Hunt family have one in China, but this is what we put out for spring. In the center, we got a working diorama of a stagecoach, and that one you can actually flip the lights on and it moves and the scenery goes by, and that was made by a local resident. And then on the right, I just shared one of our many beautiful wardrobe pieces, and that is actually taken at our suffrage exhibit, which was the first exhibit that we put on when we were able to reopen. Like the Chumash Museum, we were closed on March 13th, and we opened in early August as an outdoor-only museum. We were blessed that we could be creative. We have a big property, 4.5 acres, that we could utilize in different ways to offer the public a way to spend the day out enjoying the museum, even though we could not go inside. And so our suffrage exhibit was part of our theme for the year. Our theme was Women in History. And we chose that because in 2020, because we were celebrating the centennial of women's suffrage. And so that in August, we started with some beautiful kiosks that were donated to us by the National Archives. And we built a whole series of vignettes using mannequins and our period clothing. And we set up scenes within the different buildings, including the main inn building, Pioneer House and Schoolhouse, with scenes from the suffrage movement. For instance, you could peek into the parlor and see a suffragette meeting in progress. So what we did is the guests were allowed into the outdoors, but we opened the doors so they could peer into the interiors where we'd set up lots of different things for them to enjoy. And they could still see parts of our collection. And that was a very successful event for us. We needed to find a way to really attract as many visitors as possible on the few days we were able to be open. If you look at our 2019 visitors here, these are some of our major events listed, and we were able in 2019 to, of course, have all of those. And the different colors, I don't know if you can see, they're representing adults, seniors, students, and children. So it's giving us an idea of who our main visitors are, and the largest category there is adults. We had a little bit different data, so I'm presenting it a little bit differently too. This is our 2020 visitors, much fewer events. The distribution is still fairly similar. Biggest group is the adults, and then the children. Of course, we're not seeing children at school tours here, so that's smaller than it would normally be. We did manage to do one pilot COVID school tour for a homeschool group, and it was very successful, but that was right when COVID really increased in intensity, and so we did not continue in that direction. We decided that we needed to go with more virtual activities. Just a quick comparison of our financials, and you'll see complete reports within the two books that I sent out to you. You'll see that in 2019, our gross profits were $113,000 roughly, and in 2020, only $62,000. So we're seeing some major hit here. Our net revenue was negative $25,000 for the year in 2020. Again, looking at those major sources of income that had been interrupted in weddings and school tours is a big piece of that. So how do we recover? We are actually sitting in a pretty good position right now, surprisingly. What we decided to do was, as I said, bring the museum to the community if they couldn't come to us. And one of the ways that we did that was with virtual tours. Now, there was no direct revenue stream from the virtual tours, but the idea was to stay very connected with the community, make sure people didn't forget us, look to the community for donations, and look to keeping our membership loyal and renewing, which we've been successful in doing. We stayed extremely connected during this time. One of those ways was through a series of virtual tours. In 2020, we released our first three virtual tours, and one of our main videographers is sitting here in the room, Nellie Cusworth, is actually the videographer for our entire virtual tour series, and we have a couple of other series also. So just for fun, I thought I'd let you step over to the museum for a second or two, and if you what's your name? Okay, if you wouldn't mind, if we can just play a little clip there from, this is our How to Build a Chumash Op with Fred Nueska, one of our volunteers. That's the best we can do on volume. they're just set up to play a small clip, but it gives you an idea. The other ones on the screen are Welcome to the Timber School and a visit to the blacksmith shop. And our junior docents, which is a program that we've really revitalized along with our internship program. Our junior docents actually lead the tour. If you just want to click on the one with the schoolhouse for just a second, you'll see all of our junior docents in costume. And that's been a very successful program for us. Pam's very involved with that program directly. And that's something that we want to grow even more. As we talked about, we want to bring in more and more young people and different age groups.
This building is a reconstruction of the original timber school that was built in 1889.
And some of you may know that that was rebuilt, that was built actually by the Newbury Park High School, along with, of course, some expert help. And then our last one is the blacksmith shop. And this is one of our most popular exhibits. So this is why we chose these three as our first virtual tours, so that we can have people wanting to come back as soon as we're open. And we have had good attendance when we've been able to be open. You can go ahead and pause that. I'm trying to go to the next slide. Okay, I'm trying to go to the next slide. Can you? There we go. There we go. Okay. So make you all crazy here. So in 2021, we put out another 4 virtual tours. So we have a total of 7 virtual tours, bringing our guests into all of our major outlying buildings. So that's been an exciting thing for us to have those as an outreach. And we've sent those out through our Stage Lines newsletter, which goes to our membership and a few community members beyond that, as well as through Constant Contact and Passport to History, cooperative group that we work with. And so we're reaching out to a large group of people with these virtual tours. And then, of course, they're on YouTube as well as on our website, so people can search and find them. And I've been interested to see comments and find that we're starting to attract audiences that are not necessarily anywhere near living in the area. Okay, so that's going to do that for me. I'm trying. There we go. Okay. The other thing that we've done is we've offered a series of grand porch performances. So when we are able to be open, we want to make sure there's something that we're really promoting in the papers and in the community that people will come out to the inn for, that they won't say, oh, well, I'll go there next week or the next week. You know, this show is being offered this weekend and this weekend only, or maybe 2 weekends. So come now. This was a very successful show, The Ladies of the Conejo, where we focused on 8 prominent women from the Conejo speaking in an old time radio show format. And they were not all living at the same time. They were starting from the Spanish land grant days and coming up to Donna Fargo here with Conejo Valley days. And so you had to escape reality a little bit, but we brought all these historical figures in and brought history alive for our guests. And this was first introduced during our holiday event. And that was, we were allowed to do 1 performance before we were shut down. So we had a very elaborate holidays at the inn event. We were completely sold out for the first evening of the event, and we extended it to a second weekend, and that was selling out well too. As it turned out, though, we were only able to host that event for 1 weekend before the governor's order shut down all the museums. So I'm hoping I can go. Yeah, okay. This is our 2021 porch performance, grand porch performance. This is Come Sip With Me. And this was on May 1st and 15th, so fairly recent. We had about 100 guests at our second performance, which is good for a Saturday. We've only been able to open on Saturdays from 1 to 4. We're normally open from Wednesday through Sunday, 1 to 4. But between docents who are not quite ready to return, we're getting more that are willing now. But we've had a difficulty in staffing enough for more days open. So what we've done is focused on making the days that we are open very attractive to guests and trying to bring in a good group of people. This is our Heritage Oak fundraising campaign. This was started, it was planned before 2021 because we'd been advised by CRPD that we were going to need to remove the ancient oak tree on our property. And while that was very sad for us, we've turned this into a really great opportunity for growth and kind of looking at the circle of life. This is a series of videos that have been produced in conjunction with that campaign. And on the left, you see our beautiful oak tree there. And one of our docents talks about the oak tree and the importance to the Chumash and to our community. In the center, you see Alan Salazar, who came out to give a blessing on the oak tree the day that we were cutting it down. And if I can, I'm actually going to try and play this third one. Okay. So if you could pause the first two. The third one is showing our removal of the oak tree and time-lapse photography. And that same day, we also, can you turn down the volume a little bit? That same day, we also planted a new oak tree, a young oak tree. It was 40 years young. And so that whole area, we're calling that the Heritage Oak Grove. And in that area, we have a beautiful meter where we have a goal set of raising $25,000, and that's a magic number. You know why it's $25,000, of course, because we're hoping to raise matching funds to be matched by CRPD for not only development of that oak grove, where we have slices of the original tree and are wanting to put together a timeline project showing key events in our local history on the giant slabs of oak. So we're working with a dendrologist to date the oak tree and establish the rings within it. We also used many parts of that oak tree to put in some rustic seating in that area, and also to make some beautiful craft items, everything from wine racks to candle holders and planters, which we're selling in our emporium. That's our gift shop. And so there's lots of ways that we're using that difficult change of letting go of our oak tree, but to look at how we can use it to grow. And in fact, that's our campaign with the Heritage Oak series is who says money doesn't grow on trees? Your $1 can become $3 in cooperation with Conejo Recreation and Parks District. So we are hoping to reach that goal and work with you in making some of the property improvements that we had planned. One of the big areas that we're focusing on is patio developments. This area in the Heritage Oak Grove is one patio area, a back deck patio, and our lower patio area. And the idea is to have these be multi-use areas where we can put on different types of events, and also where we can attract visitors to stay and linger a little while when they come. We find that because we don't offer refreshments or we obviously do have bathrooms, but after about an hour, maybe an hour and 15 minutes, most of our guests are leaving the property. And so we're looking for ways to help them come and stay a while, and maybe come on days where they're not even going to do the museum tours, but just want to enjoy the beautiful grounds, walk the nature trail, have some refreshments on the back porch, and that sort of thing. So that's one of the ways that we're trying to diversify our activities. This is looking forward to 2021. We're in the midst of our spring Conejo hunt, which has been an extremely popular activity. Again, the idea here was to attract people to the property. And one of the mottos we've had is trying to make the museum, the place to be for the holidays and the place for making memories. And so for the spring holiday, we introduced the spring Conejo hunt. And in this event, guests are able to look for cute little conejos, bunnies, all over the property. We have 36 of them. They're metalworks, beautiful, made by one of our volunteers, and they're numbered, and the guests can write down where they found the conejos and get a small prize at the end. And this was introduced at Easter, and it was so popular. People were already asking us if we'd be doing it next year. We decided to just extend it throughout spring. And so every Saturday, people are still hunting conejos, and I'll tell you, the adults like it as much as the kids. Also coming up is our signature event, the Pioneer Jamboree. That'll be coming up on June 12th, and we're excited to get back to doing this. Of course, we've had to modify it a little because here we are opening this event up just a few days before things are supposed to loosen up a little more. So we're still requiring masks on property and social distancing and limiting the number of guests. We are doing quite well with ticket sales for that, which we are requiring pre-purchase. And so we're very eager to get back to our Pioneer Jamboree event. And I want to thank CRPD for all the support you've given us. And this is our Heritage Oak Grove area. As you can see, the seating there is all made from pieces of the tree. And it's actually a very lovely little area that we'll be using for weddings and just social areas. I'm interested to see how the guests use it when they come. And we've incorporated it into our recent Come Sip With Me program, performance on the Grand Porch that was about how to drink tea properly. And we had little tea tables set up there, and Pam and I got to be special guests, but not as special as the main guest who showed up, which was the Queen herself. So if the Queen's willing to come out to Sim and see what we have to offer, we hope all of you will be too. And thank you again so much for your support.
Thank you. Director Lang, any questions or comments?
Yes. Again, great presentation, a lot of good information and so forth. And my connection goes back many, many, many years. And I have a, not personal, but my mother-in-law worked in the kitchen. And when the stove first arrived, she was the one cleaning it up and so forth. So that goes back many years. But anyway, you mentioned the Heritage Oak area. Tom, is the Park District involved in any aspects of the design of that? And if so, are there any renderings yet as to, you talked about a wedding venue, et cetera, et cetera. What's it going to look like?
So we're in the very early stages of it. The main use of it right now is for the fundraising purposes. As I mentioned, we have this beautiful meter where we're marking off as we raise money. It has an oak tree carved at the top of it that was made by Bobby Messinger, our metalworks docent. And so that's the focus right now, is to bring people into the area, let them know what we're looking at doing, and that we're raising funds to develop that area as well as other parts of the property. What we want it to be is a multi-use area. Weddings is one of the areas. There have been some proposals to put a gazebo in that area.
A
Gazebo.
Oh, gazebo.
A lot of people, including myself, think that gazebo would be perfect there, just perfect.
Other alternatives that are being discussed are to be able to bring up portable arches and things like that for the wedding area. We used to have many weddings performed in front of the oak tree that was there before, but it's still a lovely area. And so an archway could be brought up, and then we could still use it for other things. One of the other things that's been discussed is we're looking at, as you can see, it doing a lot more theater. We've done the Grand Porch Performances. So we're looking at doing a lot of living history performances. And one thing that's been proposed is I'll call it a reverse theater in the round, where the guests are sitting in our central parking lot and they kind of turn to see action in different areas. Action on the front porch, action at the blacksmith shop, action going on over by the schoolhouse. In this oak tree area would be also a stage area for those performances. So we want to keep it rustic in nature if we're going to use it as a multi-use area. But probably some sort of a surface. It's just dirt right now, and probably accessible by a set of stairs. Right now you have to go around back and there's a small set of stairs, but we'd like to bring them from the front area so that if it is used for weddings or if there's a gazebo there, it's easy to get back and forth.
Thank you. Sounds good.
Director Cusworth.
So I know a lot about the Stagecoach. Rose, video tour done. I'll get it to you soon. It's really good.
Oh, good.
In fact, I enjoyed that one because when I filmed all the other ones, I pretty much knew all the information. But when Jeannie, the president of the Rose Society, was telling me all about these antique roses, I knew nothing. So I felt like I learned something. So I'm very excited about this video.
And it's gorgeous right now. It smells good. I wish we could put that in the video.
Yeah, well, she brings that up. She even has me smell it. All of a sudden, the camera goes up for me to smell the roses. She has a lot of energy. You can tell that Jana's brought a lot of energy into the Stagecoach Inn and all of those activities that I think a lot of them were her idea, and I'm sure other people too. have been huge successes. We bought one of those Caneos for our house, and my son wanted one, and my granddaughter wanted one. So I bought 3 of those metal Caneos to put in our yards. So, and the trick or treat thing, my grandkids have moved here. So I've been going to events through the eyes of my grandchildren, and it's been a joy to me to be able to share that with them. So I think we're looking for better days ahead. And thank you so much, Jana. And then, also Pam. I don't know how Pam does it. She's a full-time teacher, and I wouldn't be doing her job as president of the society. But she leads us all with a smile, and we're all staying together. So thank you, ladies.
Thank you. Director Holt.
Well, as Pam knows, I did a lot at the Stagecoach Inn Museum, and of course, I still get the newsletter, which I really love to read, find out what's going on. Your presentation, however, was great. I found out more things about what's going on there. And so I just, I think there's a lot happening, and congratulations to both of you. And it's good to see you, Pam.
It's wonderful seeing you. Jana didn't bring it up. We had our very first Zoom speaker, and it was widely received. It was really exciting. I was super thrilled. I want to expand that audience and have both my boys live in New York. And when I was in New York visiting them, when we could fly, I noticed that on all the subways, they had a curator series for the entire city of New York, and different curators speaking from each museum once a month. And it was really cool, and you had to, they had an address, and that's where you got the Zoom link. And I thought, oh my gosh, what a wonderful, wonderful way to bring your community together. So I was just talking to Barbara about it, where we can merge the speaker series, merge them. And I think that if we could expand it to all the museums and have something going every month, that would be awesome. It would be just incredibly wonderful. And have it both virtual and live.
I have to congratulate both museums because now you're working together. And there was a time, I was so involved for so long, there was a total separation. And now there is not. And I think that's just fantastic.
Well, I think that as a community, we all need to work together.
Right.
And like I said, when I was in New York and I saw all the museums in New York working together, I thought, yes, this is what we need. This is what we should do. So
It was interesting during COVID that the museums were, the California Association of Museums and the national associations as well, of course, came together looking for funding. And so I had much more interaction with the other museums than I expected to. And so that was a big plus. And I failed to mention that we were successful in attracting and being awarded several relief grants. So that we actually, if you're looking at the current financials, which is the separate sheet that I handed out, we're actually sitting in a comfortable position. We were able to bring in 2 Paycheck Protection Program forgivable loans, as well as a COVID relief grant and a Ventura County Business Assistance Grant. So it's totaled about $33,000. And so that went a long way in helping offset some of the lost revenues. So we are actually in what I would call a stable position. We have been able to cover a lot of our operations, and like the Chumash Museum, we really reduced our expenses, but we're looking to CRPD to help us stay on track with our growth and development plans because, we took everything we could do to just keep the lights on, so to speak, and keep things going. And we had some fantastic plans for how we're going to use the property, and that's where we're looking for your assistance.
well, and honestly, you guys, our air conditioning, heating and air completely broke during COVID. What a great time for that to happen. So we actually were able to rebuild it with your help. And now we have museum quality heating and air that we never had before, so that our archives are safe. And so, I mean, yes, when we had the suffragette exhibit and all the doors were open, well, it was okay because our heating and air back was dead. It was completely gone. And the minute it got fixed, it was like, those doors are closed. Period, and we even got the upgrade on the HEPA filters. So now not only is it museum quality, but it's hospital quality. So you can have an operation in our facility, and it will be great. And you'll be safe.
That was an important, I think, development for us because, of course, we have an older generation of docents, a higher risk category. And as I said before, a lot of people hesitant to come back. And I think with the guests too, guests were eager to come back to the outdoor facility, but people hesitate sometimes going into the closed, especially an older building. You kind of think, what's the air quality like? And is there air exchange? Well, there is great air exchange now, as Pam said. So we feel very comfortable in bringing guests back into the museum, and we feel very comfortable working there closely together.
Yeah, but a lot of the docents are still uncomfortable.
Director Hupper, did you have any questions or comments?
Just a comment, pretty much the same comment I made with our first presentation, that I'm so impressed by what you and your volunteers and everyone have been doing during this challenging period, and not just sitting and hoping and waiting and, well, things will be better next year, but you're making things better now so that when you're able to resume some semblance of normalcy, you'll be up and running. So congratulations to everything you've done for the past year. Great presentation, and I look forward to being able to get back there again. I'm sorry I'm going to miss the Jamboree. I'm out of town that Saturday, but yeah, but
Tickets are selling fast. Yeah, I think that they're about. But hey, you can come back when there's no.
Well, thank you. And I just want to echo that too, just to hear and see the different activities we've been able to take on during the opportunity to do so has been very encouraging, because you could have just closed the doors and turned the lights off and say, okay, we'll put the little mothballs out for a while until we come back, and we'll start over again. But to continue to see your efforts is great, because I mean, obviously to have both these facilities in our own community is wonderful, because history makes a difference for us. It's like they say, history matters. You need to know what your history is, and people don't realize how valuable it is until they learn about their history. So appreciate your continuing to make that not only available, but alive, including just coming that way. I'm going to start using that term now. When my kids say my clothes are old, I said, no, I'm wearing period clothing.
Thank you. And I'll be honest, when we were one of the very, very few museums in both Los Angeles and Ventura County to open our outdoor areas, we were one of the only ones. So we had museums coming from LA and San Barbara to look at what we were doing, so that they could see if they could do something on their property.
It's fantastic.
So it's kind of cool.
Yes.
I should mention that we were able to be open as an outdoor museum from January through March 13th, and then we were able to reopen August 1st, and we were open as an outdoor museum through December, first week in December, when we were shut down again. And then, after the first of the year, it was to open again. So we have been able to be open quite a bit. And one of the things that I didn't mention that was a big area that I think really helps us with social distancing and bringing an enhanced museum experience to the guests is that we've put QR code signage throughout the whole property. So each of the outlying buildings and exhibits has a little QR code where you can just flash, wave your smartphone by it, And then you'll be greeted in front of those virtual tours you saw. That's about the exhibits you're watching. So if someone's waiting for a docent, standing there 6 feet back, they can watch that on their phone. Or if we don't have enough docents to staff the areas, they can be using that and being engaged with additional supplemental information.
That's fantastic. Well, thank you so much for your presentation. Did you have another thing, Director Hubbard? Okay. Thank you so much for the presentation, both from the Chumash and the Historical Society. Thoroughly enjoyed it. Look forward to it all the time because you guys, there's no dust at these places. Things are happening all the time. So thank you so much for coming this evening.
Thank you so much for having us.
Yes.